Three young women, three different places, three lives filled with plans for the future. Then suddenly, silence. One vanished after moving to a new city. One was murdered steps away from her own door. One studied missing women before becoming one herself. The terrifying part is not how they died, it is who killed them. June 30th, 2011. Police cars rolled into Barristers Hall, a student apartment building near Mercer University in Macon, Georgia. Officers thought they were checking on a missing law student named Lauren Giddings. Her family had not heard from her for days, and her phone kept going straight to voicemail. The second officers stepped out of their cars. A horrible smell hit the air. It drifted across the courtyard and wrapped around the building. Experienced officers knew the smell at once. Something dead was close. The smell became stronger near the trash bins behind the apartments. Officers slowly opened one container and found a black plastic bag wrapped with tape. Inside was the torso of a young woman. There were no arms, no legs, and no head. Everyone froze. Detectives rushed upstairs to Lauren's apartment. Her door showed no sign of forced entry. Her wallet, phone, and keys still sat inside. It looked like she had vanished in the middle of her normal life. Inside the bathroom, investigators noticed something strange. The room looked too clean. The bathtub, tiles, and floor had been scrubbed hard. When police sprayed chemicals to search for blood, the bathroom glowed bright blue. Blood had been everywhere. Someone had tried to erase every trace. At that moment, police knew Lauren had not disappeared. She had been murdered inside her own home. Lauren Giddings was 27 years old and had just finished law school. She wanted to become a public defender and help people who could not defend themselves. Friends loved her bright smile and warm personality. She had just returned from her sister's wedding and planned to spend the next weeks studying for the bar exam. Everyone thought she was busy with books and stress. Nobody knew she was terrified. Before she disappeared, Lauren told people she felt unsafe inside her apartment. She believed someone was entering her home while she was gone. Small things kept changing places. Crumbs appeared on the floor. Her computer seemed touched. She even told her boyfriend David that she felt watched. He thought the fear came from stress and lack of sleep. Lauren lived alone, and nobody imagined danger was only a few feet away. Right next door lived Stephen McDaniel. He was another law graduate from Mercer University. He had known Lauren for years. They studied together and belonged to the same student groups. But Stephen secretly watched Lauren every day. He learned her schedule, watched her leave for runs, and knew when her lights turned off at night. While Lauren planned her future, Stephen built an obsession that grew darker every week. On June 25th, Lauren went out with classmates to celebrate finishing school. She laughed, talked about moving in with David, and returned home around 10 p.m. Later that night, she sent one more message saying she still felt uneasy inside the apartment. After that message, nobody heard from her again. According to Stephen's confession later, he entered Lauren's apartment around 4:30 a.m., using a master key. He wore gloves and a mask. Lauren never had the chance to escape. Stephen strangled her inside her bedroom with his bare hands. The next day, he cut apart her body inside the bathroom using a hacksaw. He threw most of her remains into dumpsters around campus and left her torso in a trash can outside the building. Days passed before friends realized something was terribly wrong. Lauren usually answered messages quickly. Her silence frightened everyone. On June 29th, her friend Ashley entered Lauren's apartment using a spare key. She found Lauren's belongings still inside. Her phone, purse, and laptop had been left behind. Ashley called the police immediately. As police searched the building, local reporters arrived outside Barristers Hall. One reporter interviewed Stephen McDaniel because he claimed to be Lauren's worried friend. Stephen calmly spoke about Lauren's disappearance and guessed she may have gone running. Then the reporter mentioned that the police had found a body in the trash. Stephen's face changed instantly. His eyes widened. His mouth opened. He looked shocked beyond words. He suddenly asked to sit down because he felt weak. Cameras captured every second. Police later believed Stephen realized garbage trucks were supposed to empty the bins that morning. If police had arrived later, Lauren's body might have disappeared forever inside a landfill. From that moment, detectives focused fully on Stephen. He joined searches for Lauren, gave interviews, and pretended to comfort neighbors, but investigators now saw something different. They noticed scratches across his stomach. Stephen claimed he scratched himself while sleeping. Police did not believe him. Police searched Stephen's apartment and uncovered terrifying evidence. They found weapons, survival supplies, and the hacksaw used to cut Lauren's body apart. Investigators also discovered empty packaging from the saw hidden inside his kitchen. Store cameras showed Stephen buying the tool before Lauren disappeared. The most disturbing evidence came from Stephen's computer. Detectives found videos of Lauren filmed through her apartment windows. Stephen used homemade devices to spy on her in secret. Police also found searches about breaking locks, destroying evidence, and hiding bodies. Stephen even searched trash collection schedules to plan how Lauren's remains would disappear. During long interrogations, Stephen sat, almost motionless, for hours. Detectives shouted questions and showed him photos of Lauren, but he kept denying everything. He believed. Police lacked enough evidence to convict him. He thought he was smarter than everyone inside the room. That belief ended when forensic testing connected Lauren's remains to the hacksaw hidden by Stephen. Investigators also found Lauren's underwear inside his apartment. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Stephen McDaniel finally pleaded guilty in 2014. He admitted murdering Lauren Giddings and received a sentence of life in prison with parole possible after 30 years. Lauren's family never recovered most of her remains, and the nightmare haunted them forever afterward deeply. The Lauren Giddings case left people shocked because the killer lived only steps away from her door. But another young woman would vanish years later in Georgia, and this time the mystery would stay hidden for 7 long years before police finally uncovered the truth. February 12th, 2016. 19-year-old Morgan Bauer boarded a plane and left Aberdeen, South Dakota behind. She wanted a fresh start in Atlanta, Georgia. Morgan dreamed about building her own life in a big city where nobody knew her past. Her mother worried deeply about the move because Morgan planned to stay with a man she met online through Craigslist. Morgan promised she would be careful and said she only needed time to find work and rent her own place. At first, Morgan stayed hopeful. She cleaned homes in exchange for a room to sleep in, but the deal quickly fell apart. Soon, she bounced between cheap motels and struggled to survive. Money disappeared fast. Morgan tried finding restaurant work, but nothing lasted. Finally, she began dancing at adult clubs around Atlanta because she needed cash immediately. Friends later said Morgan looked exhausted and stressed during those days, but she refused to return home because she wanted to prove she could survive on her own. Detectives also learned Morgan spent time moving between different motels while trying to stay safe. Some nights, she slept wherever she could because money disappeared quickly. Her family later said Morgan sounded tired during phone calls, but she believed things would improve. February 26, 2016. Morgan uploaded a short video to social media from Yellow River Park in Porterdale, Georgia. In the clip, she smiled at the camera while walking through the trees. But people later noticed something terrifying. A man could be seen behind her in the distance, quietly following her path through the park. Nobody knew then that this would become one of the final images of Morgan alive. Morgan stayed active online for only a few more days. Her final social media activity appeared on February 29th. After that moment, every message stopped. Calls went unanswered. Her Snapchat fell silent. Her phone either died or was turned off forever. Morgan's mother knew instantly something was wrong because her daughter never disappeared without speaking to family. Her parents rushed to Georgia carrying stacks of missing posters. They searched streets, clubs, motels, and parks. Online groups exploded with theories. Some people believed Morgan left willingly. Others feared she had fallen into danger while trying to survive alone in Atlanta. Police searched for leads, but months turned into years without answers. Morgan seemed to vanish into thin air. For years, the case stayed cold. Then, everything changed during the summer of 2023. Federal agents and Georgia investigators suddenly swarmed a property on Broad Street in Porterdale. Neighbors watched officers dig through the yard and carry evidence bags from the home. Police refused to explain what they found, but everyone understood the search connected directly to Morgan Bauer. Investigators focused on two people connected to the property. Their names were Jonathan Alexander Warren and Caitlin Goebel. Police believed the pair had been among the last people seen with Morgan before she vanished in 2016. In August 2023, officers arrested Warren in Los Angeles after tracking him across the country. Around the same time, Goebel was arrested in Illinois. Both suspects were extradited back to Georgia. Prosecutors revealed horrifying accusations against them. Investigators believed Morgan had been strangled to death. Court records claimed her killers dismembered and burned her body to destroy evidence and stop police from finding her remains. The investigation exposed even darker details. Prosecutors charged Warren with necrophilia, accusing him of committing sexual acts with Morgan's body after her death. The charge shocked everyone following the case because it revealed how cruel and twisted the crime truly was. As investigators searched the Porterdale property, they uncovered bones connected to Morgan Bauer. The discovery finally gave her family confirmation after years of painful waiting. Morgan's remains had stayed hidden for nearly 7 years, while her loved ones kept hoping she might still come home alive. Investigators continued building the case piece by piece. The FBI worked alongside Georgia authorities, local police, and several agencies from other states. Detectives collected evidence showing Morgan's death had been carefully hidden for years. Prosecutors prepared for trial, while Morgan's family waited to finally hear the truth inside a courtroom. January 2024. Jonathan Warren appeared in Newton County Court and pleaded guilty to malice murder, tampering with evidence, concealing the death of another person, and necrophilia. He entered a non-negotiated plea and hoped the court might give him life with the possibility of parole. The judge refused. After hearing the disturbing details of Morgan's murder, the court sentenced Jonathan Warren to life in prison without parole. Caitlin Goebel's case remained pending, while investigators continued examining her role in Morgan's death. Morgan Bauer left South Dakota dreaming about freedom and a new future. Instead, she walked into a nightmare hidden behind strangers, empty promises, and people who saw her vulnerability as an opportunity. For 7 years, her family searched for answers while her killers stayed silent. When the truth finally surfaced, it exposed a crime far darker than anyone imagined. The Morgan Bauer case showed how a young woman could disappear for years before the truth finally surfaced. But only 2 years before Morgan vanished, another young student in Canada walked into a nightmare that shocked the country and left her family broken forever. February 13th, 2014. Snow covered the streets of Halifax, Nova Scotia, while 26-year-old Loretta Saunders prepared to visit her apartment. Loretta was studying criminology at St. Mary's University and was writing a thesis about missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada. She wanted to expose the violence Indigenous women faced. Friends said she worked constantly because she believed those stories deserved justice. Nobody imagined she would soon become one of those victims herself. Loretta had sublet part of her apartment to Blake Leggett and Victoria Henneberry. The couple had failed to pay rent for weeks, and Loretta planned to collect the money she was owed. She was pregnant at the time and wanted stability before her child arrived. Her family later said she worried about the couple, but still believed they would eventually pay her back. When Loretta entered the apartment that afternoon, an argument quickly exploded. According to court records, Blake attacked her inside the apartment while Victoria watched. Blake wrapped his hands around Loretta's neck and choked her violently. He slammed her head against the floor until she stopped fighting. Then he wrapped plastic around her head while Victoria stood nearby and failed to call police or help the dying woman. Hours later, Blake and Victoria stuffed Loretta's body into a hockey bag and carried it outside. Neighbors had no idea a murdered woman was being dragged through the building. The pair loaded the bag into Loretta's own car and drove away from Halifax. The next morning, Loretta's family could not reach her. Her phone suddenly stopped answering. Friends grew nervous because Loretta always stayed in contact with people she loved. Her family reported her missing almost immediately. Police soon discovered her bank card was still being used after she disappeared. Text messages were also sent from Loretta's phone, pretending she was alive and safe. Detectives later learned Blake and Victoria were sending those messages while driving across Canada in Loretta's stolen car. Days passed while police searched desperately. Then, officers found Loretta's body beside the Trans-Canada Highway near Salisbury, New Brunswick. She had been dumped in the snow nearly 400 kilometers away from Halifax. Investigators realized the killers had tried to hide her body where nobody would easily discover her. Police tracked Loretta's stolen car to southern Ontario days later. Officers surrounded the vehicle and arrested Blake Leggett and Victoria Henneberry together. Inside the car, investigators found Loretta's phone, identification cards, and bank information. The evidence connected the pair directly to her murder almost immediately. As the case moved forward, investigators uncovered chilling details. Blake began writing journal entries in jail describing the killing. Guards later discovered the writings during a search of his cell. Prosecutors believed the journal showed how cold and planned the murder was. Both suspects were charged with first-degree murder. Lawyers fought for months over evidence and trial issues, while Loretta's family waited through painful court hearings. Her mother cried while describing the loss of her daughter and unborn grandchild. Her father spoke angrily about the people who destroyed their family forever. April 2015. Just before trial began, Blake Leggett suddenly pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. Victoria Henneberry pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. The courtroom fell silent as the pair admitted responsibility for Loretta's death. During sentencing, emotions exploded inside the courtroom. Loretta's sister Delilah stood up to read her victim impact statement, then suddenly lunged toward the killers while screaming in rage. Sheriffs rushed forward as Delilah shouted, "You stole my sister!" Family members cried while others glared at the pair sitting before the judge. Loretta's mother sobbed while reading her statement. She spoke about warning her daughter to avoid dangerous roommates. She described the pain of losing both her daughter and unborn grandchild in one horrific crime. Friends and supporters packed the courtroom wearing purple, Loretta's favorite color. Judge Josh Arnold called the murder despicable, horrifying, and cowardly. He sentenced Blake Leggett to life in prison without parole for 25 years. Victoria Henneberry received life in prison with parole eligibility after 10 years because prosecutors said no evidence showed she physically attacked Loretta herself. As deputies led the killers from the courtroom, one family member screamed insults, while another promised they would never forget what happened. Loretta Saunders entered that apartment hoping to collect unpaid rent. Instead, her killers turned her into another name on the list she had spent years trying to expose forever. After hearing the stories of Lauren Giddings, Morgan Bauer, and Loretta Saunders, which case disturbed you the most? And do you think any warning signs could have saved them before it was too late?